Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and some might immediately point to the fact that this video is technically like several days old, but what I'm trying to formulate to you guys is the idea that despite the fact that I could sit here all day and point at the absurd level of hypocrisies that are labelled at Angela Rayner by the Tories, and you probably know the drill by now, is that before the Tories could even remotely start speaking about, corruption or whatever Angela Rayner's been up to, I would also want to remember that Michelle Mone still exists and has not been brought to justice for ripping off millions of pounds from this country. So whatever you want to say about Angela Rayner, you're more than free to. I just kind of felt it was worth mentioning this because, well, the writing, it sort of speaks for itself, doesn't it? And bear in mind, Michelle Mone isn't actually a Tory MP specifically, but, well, we could get into conversations about, of other people who don't have any leg to stand on when they're talking about Angela. So let's get to it.
Hi guys, we need more people like Jemma Forte. So she's a political commentator and podcaster who calls out hypocrisy when she sees it.
Yep.
Jemma delivered a blistering attack on the Tories who have been trying to turn a non-story into one. Yep. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Labour leader, sold her council house something like 15 years ago, and the Tories are trying to convince the public that she's avoiding paying her taxes. We're talking about a few £1,000 here, not hundreds or even millions. Here Jemma explains why the Tory hypocrisy is so egregious.
So things are getting dirty, so the Daily Mail and the other right-wing papers are trying to find anything that they can, dirt on the Labour Party. Yep. And this is the second time the Daily Mail have really featured this very, very heavily. And the story is Angela Rayner sold her bought her council house and apparently might owe between £1,500 to say £3,500 in capital gains tax. When she sold it. However, this has already been looked at. She's had legal advice saying she's fine. It was looked at by the police once, but these people are desperate to reopen the case.
As I know probably Max will speak in to say already, is that this is already done and dusted. There's nothing to talk about with this. But what you're going to see people like the Daily Mail will do is that they'll want you to believe that it's not over and actually that there is an entirely different side to this. The side that is completely made up and, well, it's not a good selling point. Because I've said this before, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're probably going to hear me say this again, is that just dishing out dirt on other people does not make your cause look, any more righteous. What the Daily Mail and the other right-wing papers need to do is not throw dirt on other people by any means necessary. And I'm talking about like legitimate bad things that people have done. So there is that, but also the fact that you need to actually go one and beyond to try and improve the image of the Conservatives. And this is something that, well, PR has never necessarily been great with the Tories, like, ever. But if you really do want people to believe that they are the right choice for another 14 years, if it comes to it, then sell it to us. Tell us what is so great about it. Tell us something that any ordinary person can get behind. Instead of telling us, that just that the only reason we should vote for them is because none of the others are any good. That's not good enough. You need to make yourself look good. It's just you know what you got to do.
And the hypocrisy is just off the scale because the Daily Mail is owned by Lord Ashcroft, yep, who doesn't pay tax in this country, a non-dom, who has millions and millions and millions of pounds offshore. A newspaper that avoids.
You know who else claimed non-dom status, ladies and gentlemen? The Prime Minister.
Paying its tax, and they're going after a woman who bought her council house and owes a couple of grand. Now, if that is so, then obviously Labour, important members of the Labour Party need to be held up to scrutiny. They need to be accountable. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's so easy
that is
to do.
Full of millionaires and billionaires, and people like Jeremy Hunt, who, for instance, said it was an honest mistake that he didn't pay stamp duty on 7 properties. It feels rather grotesque to me. And actually what I think they don't realise they're doing is they're highlighting that in the Labour Party, you have a woman who came from a council house. And actually, I think that's really refreshing and really, really required at the moment. I think we need that in our government. I think part of the problem at the moment is that we've got a government full of, Eatonites and multimillionaires who perhaps don't understand the real problems that the country are facing. Exactly.
They don't understand the problems the country is facing.
God bless women like Jemma Forte, ladies and gentlemen. That is, now let me tell you something, that is a woman absolutely worth getting behind, because again, you're not going to convince her just by saying she's wrong. You're going to have to argue the case even harder than that.
And instead of actually dealing with the problems the country is facing, they want to attack the Labour Party, and they will do whatever they can. And of course, they will use their tools like the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Express, whatever, to achieve that as well. So we've seen it back in 2020, where I think it was the Daily Mail or the Mail on Sunday. No, I think it was the Daily Mail ran articles, 10 pages, front pages of articles on Keir Starmer having a curry during the pandemic. Now, if that wasn't real journalism, it was an attempt to smear him. It was an attempt to say, well, look, Boris Johnson may be doing pretty bad stuff, but what about Keir Starmer? Of course, Boris Johnson was having parties. Keir Starmer had a curry as part of a work event. So the police investigated it and found nothing wrong with it. But that didn't stop the deal.
Yeah, by the way, it also I know that the police do get a very mixed reception from a lot of people in this country, but I don't know if it was specifically Durham Police or Northumbria Police, but I think it was Northumbria Police the more I think about it. But let me just say, by far, perhaps the best police service in this country is Northumbria Police. So I cannot say a single bad thing against those people. They are the absolute workhorses of the police, and they set a remarkable precedent that other police officers should follow, because they mean business and they know exactly how to handle situations in a very calm and very measured way.
Daily Mail running 10 front pages for 10 days or something like that of articles about Keir Starmer. This is what they're designed to do. It's about encouraging ordinary people to look at the Labour Party or look at the opposition and say, well, there's probably something wrong with them, and not look at the Conservatives. Nadine Zouari, who was using public money to keep his horses warm and other egregious activities. Jeremy Hunt, who has something like 7 properties. He's a landlord of 7 properties. And as was pointed out, he forgot that he had to pay stamp duty on some of these properties. Rishi Sunak's wife, who's a multi-billionaire, or her father's a multi-billionaire, and we don't know what's happening with her taxes, and we don't know what's happening with her father, who has, it seems, continued his operations in Russia, which is meant to be not happening. So what they don't want you to do is look at what the Tories are doing and instead look at the opposition, in this case, the Labour Party. Now, this is all part of a plan to try and convince the public, look, it's better to stick with the Tories. Labour can't be trusted. And it's all about convincing ordinary people.
I will go one further than this. It's not just what the newspapers or it's about media publications in general. They want you to be thoroughly convinced that the current state of affairs are acceptable and they are the grandiose offerings that this government has to offer. They want you to think that everything is fine, and anything you see in the news, anything you see in real life, it is progress. But it isn't. Actual progress, ladies and gentlemen, means that things will actually change. Well, there might be a slight contradiction in this because things are changing, but for the better or for worse. You make that call, because that's one of those things that only you can decide. Do you think things are better or worse than they were before the Tories came into power? It's a difficult one, ladies and gentlemen, but that also highlights what it really means when 14 years, or more than half my lifetime, we've had the Tories in power. That sets just how long they've been in.
People that at the end of the day, they're all really the same. That Starmer is no different to Rishi Sunak, and Rachel Reeves is no different, or Angela Rayner is no different to any of the Tories. That they're all corrupt, and what that does is it places in the minds of the public a massive amount of doubt and distrust of politicians. Now, this is understandable on many levels, but when it comes to the general election, the newspapers are not trying to convince people that they need to look at politicians with a critical eye. It's look at certain politicians with a critical eye, not the ones that they're backing. But as was pointed out, the owner of the newspaper lives offshore. I think he lives in Monaco, and he pays taxes outside the UK. So he really should shut up. Wonderful commentary here once again by Jemma. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think.
This all brings into a theory, ladies and gentlemen, and I wanted to mention it in another video, is that this is what happens with the ultimate objection of this government is that they don't want people to have core values. They don't want you to think that there's anything of merit in very specific aspects of society. They want you to think that you are just there to vote for them and put up with whatever they decide to implement. If they had it their way, and for reasons I will get into rather later on, is that the Tories would be more than happy to leave the Court of Human Rights and for there to be no vote or anything for us to say about it. They would be satisfied if literally they just decided we're leaving and there's nothing we can do about it. I'll discuss that in more detail, but thank you so much for checking this out with me, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.